Dear students, in this lesson we will learn about the institution of marriage. We will also explain various aspects connected with it. This will include discussion on forms of marriage. Such forms include monogamy, polygamy, and rules such as those of endogamy and exogamy. We have also described mate selection as an important aspect of marriage. Some of the related areas covered are love marriages, preferential marriages, and mate selection practices among tribals. The last part deals with changes in marriage, its forms, mate selection practices, age at marriage, and so on. We thus provide a full picture of the institution of marriage. The institution of marriage. Marriage is an important and universal social institution of society. As a social institution, it provides a recognized form for entering into a relatively enduring heterosexual relationship for the bearing and rearing of children. It is thus primarily a way of regulating human reproduction. This reproduction, however, also has a sociological dimension. The right of sexual relationship that universally accompanies marriage provides legitimation to the children born in wedlock. This legitimacy is of great importance in the matters of inheritance and succession. Besides, through marriage, there comes into existence the family, a relatively stable social group that is responsible for care and training of children. In all these respects, then marriage has historically provided the institutional mechanisms necessary for replacement of social members and thereby has been meeting the important prerequisites of human survival and society's continuance. However, these societal prerequisites do not encompass all the values and goals of marriage. In some societies, particularly in the industrialized Western societies, the chief aim of marriage is not only procreation but companionship, emotional and psychological support are equally emphasized. The idea of companionship in marriage as a main feature, however, is a recent development. For the major part of human history, all societies have emphasized marriage to be a social obligation. It is invested with several familial, social, and economic responsibilities. Historically, marriage has been found to exist in a wide variety of forms in different societies. Also, it has been found to perform differing functions. Indeed, even the manner in which marriage partners are to be obtained reveals an astonishing variety of modes and customs. There is an almost endless variety in nearly everything concerning marriage. This has led to several definitions of what marriage is. Forms of marriage. As has just been pointed out, marriage has a large variety of forms. These forms can be identified on the basis of number of partners and rules governing who can marry who. In terms of number of partners that can legitimately enter into matrimony, we have two forms of marriage, namely monogamy and polygamy. Monogamy. Monogamy restricts the individual to one spouse at a time. Under this system, at any given time, a man can have only one wife and a woman can have only one husband. Monogamy is prevalent in all societies and is almost the universal form in all modern industrial societies. Even where polygamy is permitted, in actual practice, monogamy is more widely prevalent. Due to constraints of financial resources and almost uneven balance between the ratio of men and women in the population, a vast majority of individuals living in polygamous societies cannot have more than one spouse at a time. In many societies, individuals are permitted to marry again, often on the death of the first spouse or after divorce, but they cannot have more than one spouse at one and the same time. Such a monogamous marriage is termed as serial monogamy. Most Western societies practice serial monogamy. A society may also practice straight monogamy, in which remarriage is not allowed. Most upper caste Hindu females were obliged to follow the norm of straight monogamy prior to enactment of Widow Remarriage Act of 1856, as until the widow were not allowed to marry again. These restrictions had not, however, pertained to men. They were allowed to remarry after the spouse's death. However, in some lower castes, widow remarriage was permitted. In such remarriage, usually the deceased husband brother was considered a preferred mate. This practice helped keep property within the family. It is also called levirate marriage. Polygamy. Polygamy denotes marriage to more than one mate at one time and takes the form of either polygyny, one husband with two or more wives, or polyandry, one wife with two or more husbands. While monogamy is permitted in all the societies, polygamy in the form of polygyny in the preferred form in several societies. Murdoch's research, based on an analysis of 283 societies, revealed that 193 of these were characterized by polygyny, 43 were monogamous, and only 2 practiced polyandry. Preferential rules for choices of wives or husbands are followed in some polygamous societies. In certain societies, males marry the wife's sisters and females their husband's brothers. Such marriages are termed as sororal polygyny and fraternal polyandry, respectively. Polyandry. Among polyandrous societies, fraternal polyandry is by far the most common. In these societies, groups of brothers, real or classificatory, are collectively the husbands of a woman. This kind of polyandry has been found by researchers in various parts of the world. Tibet has been described as the largest and most flourishing polyandrous communities by Prince Peter. Polyandry is reported to be widely prevalent among some tribes in South India. Todas are considered a classic example of polyandrous people. In North India, some groups of Jats are reported to be polyandrous. Usually, where economic conditions are harsh, polyandry may be one response of society, since in such situations a single male cannot adequately support a wife and children. Also, extreme poverty conditions pressurize a group to limit its population. Rules of endogamy and exogamy. All societies have prescriptions and proscriptions regarding who may or may not marry whom. In some societies, these restrictions are subtle, while in others, individuals who can or cannot be married are more explicitly and specifically defined. Forms of marriage based on rules governing eligibility or ineligibility of mates are classified as endogamy and exogamy. Endogamy requires an individual to marry within a culturally defined group of which he or she is already a member, for example, caste. Exogamy, on the other hand, the reverse of endogamy, requires the individual to marry outside of his or her own group. Endogamy and exogamy are in reference to certain kinship units such as clan, caste, and racial, ethnic, or religious groupings. In India, even village exogamy is practiced in certain parts of North India. 1. Religious endogamy is one of the most pervasive forms of endogamy. Most religious groups do not permit or like their members to marry individuals of other faiths. In addition, various groups in the social hierarchy, such as caste and class, also tend to be endogamous. Endogamy is a very important characteristic of Indian caste system. Among Hindus, there are over 300 castes or subcastes, and each one of them is endogamous. Despite modernizing trends in India, which have diluted caste restrictions in many respects, intercaste marriages are still few and mostly limited to educated urban individuals. Although the norms of caste endogamy were widely prevalent, Hindu scriptures by allowing anuloma and pratiloma. Marriage institutionalized to a limited extent intercaste marital alliances. The anuloma marriage permits an alliance between a lower class woman and higher caste man, while the pratiloma marriage is an alliance between higher caste woman and a lower caste man. The former is referred to by the sociologist as hypergamy and latter as hypogamy. 2. Rules of exogamy among Hindus are very specific. Hindus are traditionally prohibited from marrying in their own Gotra, Pravara and Sapinda. Gotra, Pravara and Sapinda refer to a group of individuals assumed to have descended from paternal or maternal ancestor and are variously termed as clan, Sikh or lineage. The Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 forbids marriage between Sapinda and specifies that marriage between two persons related within 5 generations on the father's side and 3 on the mother's side is void unless permitted by local custom. The exogamic rule prohibiting marriage between siblings, brother or sister, and parent-child is followed in virtually all societies. Sexual relations between the members of an elementary nuclear family other than parents are termed as incest. Mate selection. The process whereby people choose marriage partners is called mate selection. While in some societies, individuals are relatively free to choose their mate from field of eligibles. In some other societies, those getting married have almost no say regarding whom they wish to marry. Even in the former situation, individuals are not entirely free to choose their mates. Culture and social pressures in subtle or explicit ways do influence choice. In all societies, there is some notion of a good match. Further, within endogamous limits, also certain relationships are preferred. Thus, mate selection is usually influenced by considerations of good match and preferential mating. In India, consideration of caste, religious and family background have traditionally been of great importance in selection of mates. In addition, looks of the girls and her competence as housewife are also considered to be important. In urban middle class families, the earning capacity of the girl is also given considerable weightage these days in the selection of a bride. Preferential marriage. While some societies prohibit marriage between certain categories of relations, that is, kins, other societies permit or even require certain kind of relatives to get married to. Thus, marriage with a particular cross cousins, father's sister or mother's brother offsprings are approved or permitted in many societies. Among Arabs and Muslims in India, marriage between parallel cousins, that is, child of father's brothers or mother's sister, is common. Possible reasons for permitting or preferring cousins' marriage are: A. Family wealth is not dispersed as it remains within related family groups, and B. Relationships do not fade away as they are constantly renewed among offsprings of related families. Marriage arrangements. In some societies, the decisions regarding mate selection are made by parent or relatives. In some other societies, individuals are relatively free to choose their own mates. Marriage arrangements thus tend to follow two patterns, namely parent arranged, called as arranged marriage, and self-choice, called as love marriage. Arranged marriage. Traditional societies like India, where extended family network has been crucial, arranging marriage has been the concern of parents and elders. In addition, gains in terms of family prestige, economic prosperity and power, especially in affluent families, have also been sought through proper marriage alliances. Consequently, marriage has been considered to be a serious matter which could not be left to the fancies of the immature. As such, in traditional societies, arranged marriage have been the norm. Such marriage have also been unavoidable because in these societies, There used to exist rigid sex segregation, due to which marriageable young girls and boys could not come together and know one another. Even today, heterosexual intermingling is not widely prevalent, and young people, especially girls themselves, seem to prefer arranged marriage, which saves them from many psychological tensions which modern youth undergo in many of the Western societies. However, it should be remembered that arranged marriages are rarely forced marriages. The needs and preferences of young people getting married are not entirely ignored. Love marriage. In the Western urban industrial method of mate selection, individuals go through process of dating and courtship. They make selections based on the consideration of feelings for one another. This is termed as love marriage by Asians or Indians. For in such marriages, mate choice is done by the individuals concerned on grounds of mutual affectionate love rather than on pragmatic consideration of social status, wealth, or other familial advantages. These love marriages stress the individual's supreme right to love and be loved in a romantic, sensual sense. Such love is considered as the essence of happiness in marriage. There is an important difference between love marriage and arranged marriage. Whereas in the latter, at the individual's level, one has vague expectation from marriage. In fact, individuals enter into a primarily for performing their social duty. In self-choice marriage, there are great expectations of happiness and companionship from one's partner in marriage. However, these are not very easy to attain and retain in day-to-day life after marriage, where practical problems of existence confront the couple. Mature personalities are able to adjust to this gap between dream and reality. The less mature find it difficult to adjust. At times, the gap between fantasy of romantic love and exigencies of practical life is so wide that the strain becomes impossible to bear and marriages ends in a failure. Evidently, such marriages involve a risk, and since the partners entering such a union had not done so for familial or social reasons, the love marriage tends to be more fragile than arranged marriage. Many of the love marriages become unstable not so much because of mistaken selection but because of non-fulfilled expectation in marriage. Mate selection among tribals. Though premarital relationships among tribals are tolerated and self-selection is permitted, all regular marriages are parent arranged. Even marriage by capture is effected in some tribes at the instance or convenience of parents. Irregular marriage are effected through elopement, intrusion, or forcible application of vermilion, all of which are eventually accepted by parents and the families concerned as signifying wedlock. In practice, various other forms of mate selection are in existence. The more important among these are discussed below. 1. Selection by purchase and service mate selection by purchase in the most prevalent practice. In this, bride price has to be paid to girl's parent. The amount of bride price ranges from a nominal price, as in case of Regma Naga, to such a high price as in case of Ho, that many young men and women have to remain unmarried. Some tribes like Gould have found a way out of high bride price. The would-be groom lives and works in his would-be father-in-law's house as a suitor servant for a number of years before he can ask for girl's hand in marriage. Another way of avoiding the payment of bride price is through an exchange of girls or women among eligible families. Youth dormitories. Tribes having youth dormitories provide a wide scope for youth to choose their mates. Therefore, marriage by mutual consent with parent approval has been general practice. Where parents object, elopement is a solution. Eventually, the parents welcome the couple's return. 3. Selection by capture. Mate selection by capture has been a feature of Naga, Ho, Bhil, and Gond tribes. Among Nagas, female infanticide was resorted to because of fear of raids for bride capturing. Among the Gond, capture takes place often at the instance of parents of the bride, and amongst the Ho, it is prearranged. Besides physical capture, there is also ceremonial capture. Among Central Indian tribes, peaceful captures are effected on the occasion of certain inter-village festivals. 4. Selection by trial. Mate selection by trial also exists among some tribes. A young will has to prove his prowess before he can claim the hand of any girl. This is generally done through a dance game. On Holi festival, young women dancers make a circle around a tree or a pole on which a coconut and wood are tied. The men folk make an outer ring. The trial of strength begins when a young man attempts to break their inner circle in order to reach the tree or pole. The women resist his attempt with all their might, and in the case man is able to reach the tree and eat the wood and break open the coconut, he can choose any girl from the surrounding inner circle as his wife. Cases are reported among some tribals where a girl desirous of marrying an unwilling mate thrusts herself on him, bears all humiliations and harsh treatment till the man yields. Such a marriage is termed as marriage by intrusion. In addition to above mentioned ways of mate selection, probationary marriages are also reported among the Kuki, who permit a young man and woman to live together at the girl's home for some weeks and then decide whether to get married or not. In case they decide to separate, the young man has to pay cash compensation to girl's parents. Changes in marriage. Industrialization and urbanizations have ushered in changes which have profoundly affected the institutions of marriage all over the world, while different societies and within each society different groups have responded differentially to industrialization and urbanization. Nonetheless, certain common trends in the changes affecting marriage are discernible. Changes in the forms of marriage. Societies with traditions of plural marriages are turning towards monogamy. Due to general improvements in the status of woman and her gradual emancipation from clutches of male dominance, even in those societies where polygamy is permissible, incidence of polygamous marriages and plurality of wives are on the decrease. In India, the Hindu Marriage Act has banned both polygynous and polyandrous marriages. Even in Muslim country like Pakistan, legislation was introduced making it necessary for the Qazi to solemnize plural marriages only if the first wife gave her written consent. The trend towards monogamy has also been encouraged by new idea of romantic love as the basis for marriage propagated by Western societies. It is marriage in which one specific individual is considered to be the ideal partner. However, it would perhaps be wrong to assume that this trend towards monogamy is also towards straight monogamy. While conditions in modern society have made marriage unstable and the marriage bond is revocable, individuals are willing to risk another marriage in order to find happiness. Parents and friends too are sympathetic in this matter. Hence, societies are likely to move towards the conditions of serial monogamy rather than maintain straight monogamy. Changes in mate selection. In traditional societies like India, where mate selection was entirely a prerogative of parents and elders, a dent has been made. Young men and women are increasingly being given some say in the matter of mate selection, from position in which they had no say whatsoever concerning whom they were to get married to, a stage has now come in which the concerned individuals are consulted and their consent obtained. In urban middle class families, sons and daughters have even come to enjoy the right to veto marriage proposals initiated by others. In the more advanced and enlightened urban families, parents are now giving opportunities to their children to become acquainted with prospective mates. Dating, a practice in which a boy and a girl meet each other to get to know each other and enjoy themselves with relative freedom, is a phenomenon which can be seen in different colleges and universities of predominantly metropolitan cities in India. It is again an imitation of Western society and in the result of exposure of people to Western culture to a far greater extent than it was earlier. In India, mate selection through newspaper advertisement has become quite a popular practice among urban middle classes, and the latest development is the reported harnessing of the services of computers in bringing potentially compatible mates together. Changes in age of marriage. In India, where traditionally child marriage were prescribed, preferred, and encouraged, various efforts were made by social reformers to bring this practice to an end. Accordingly, the Child Marriage Restraint Act, popularly known as Sarda Act, was passed in 1929. However, early marriage continues in spite of the impact of modern industrialization and urbanization, especially among the rural people. In urban areas, too, there was a strong tendency to get daughter married off as soon as possible. But with increasing enrollment of girls in schools and colleges and their desire to take up employment, along with the problem of settling down in life for vast majority of boys, the age at marriage is perforce being pushed up. Further, as part of its population policy, the government has now prescribed the minimum age of marriage as 18 years for girls and 20 years for boys. In urban areas, however, marriages are now generally taking place beyond these prescribed minimum ages. Conclusion. In this lesson, various practices related to the institution of marriage were discussed. We have presented the institution and forms of marriage early in the unit. These indicate the wide differences in marriage practices and procedures. Our discussions on mate selection indicate that society and social rules are based upon different aspects of marriage. In many cases, marriage happens within a very narrow choice. Finally, we have indicated how marriages as an institution has been changing. This shows that marriage itself is a dynamic institution, always undergoing modification.